This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm Ashley.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Rochelle.
And on this week's episode, I'm going to be finishing my Hollywood Ripper story.
Yay!
And Rochelle is going to be talking about the Radium Girls.
Yay!
Yeah.
I'm super excited for both of these stories.
I forgot that we didn't finish the Hollywood Ripper.
Yeah, I'm anxious to
That's
know
exciting.
what happens. Yeah.
I don't know how much I have left. It may not be much, but I figured I probably should have stopped last week while I was ahead. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, and I don't know anything about the Radium Girls, so I'm excited.
Very excited. Oh, I would like to announce that COVID has finally hit my house. We have gone these whole 2 years without getting COVID, and it's finally hit. My husband tested positive. I so far have tested negative. And so I keep telling him to stay away from me. And so far our son's doing okay. So everybody out there, fingers crossed for us that Oliver does not get it.
Oh, happy first birthday. Here's the coronavirus.
Right?
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So all of our listeners, and we have a bunch of new listeners, guys.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot. I was like, I am forgetting something.
Yeah, we have a bunch of new listeners. Welcome. We love you all.
Yeah, thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see.
It's so great. We love it.
Yes. So thank you. Hopefully you stick around.
Yeah, hopefully you like us. You're not like, ugh, these bitches suck.
Yeah.
So tell us the exciting conclusion of the Hollywood Ripper.
Sure. Just to recap, for last week, we're talking about Jeepers.
Meghan Markle?
Michael Gargiulo. He is the Hollywood Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
He murdered
Ashton Kutcher's date, which is crazy.
So he murdered.
Oh,
It's been a week.
The censored version. He married them.
That's so nice.
He is not nice. He murdered 3 women, and then he attempted murder on a final woman, and thankfully she survived.
Yay.
So I'm just gonna recap the last sentence I said last week because I think it was like really cool.
Okay.
So, how come the cops hadn't discovered those murders yet if he had killed so many more women? Gargiulo only went to trial for those charges that they could truly prove because there was no hard proof to back up his declarations. So how did he get away with it for so long when the cops in his hometown could have apprehended him at least 5 years ago?
I don't know. Just tell us.
Tell us.
Please tell us.
The long-awaited second part.
Yay.
When Gargiulo's case gained media attention, he was dubbed the Hollywood Ripper or Chiller Killer by news outlets.
Oh, I like that. That's cool.
Chiller Killer.
Killer.
But like, why Chiller Killer? Like that just makes me feel like he put bodies in a freezer.
Yeah, that doesn't really work.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good rap name. Killer.
When the public learned that Ashton Kutcher was involved in the case, it turned into an even bigger media frenzy. People were perplexed as to how Gargiulo got away with his crimes, despite the fact that we now have superior technology than we did before.
Yeah.
Gargiulo's pretrial hearing took place in Los Angeles on June 9th, 2017, and his trial was set to begin in October of that same year. The official trial of the Hollywood Ripper began on May 2nd, 2019, following several delays. At the trial, Ashton Kutcher testified about his doomed date with Ellerin in 2001. Gargiulo was dubbed a serial sexual thrill killer during this trial due to the way he stabbed and brutally murdered his victims.
Don't like that.
Nope. His defense team said he didn't remember anything, thus he pleaded not guilty to all allegations.
Oh, sure. He didn't remember anything.
But remember in the first part when he said he was never going to confess to any more crimes that he ever committed.
Yeah.
And he never thought that he was in the wrong. So
yeah, but you think he could come up with a better defense than just I don't remember.
Or the crazy.
Well, even that's better than I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, not that I'm defending him, but like he could have blacked out, right? Sometimes people rage blackout.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think it's true, but I'm just saying. Don't defend the guy, obviously, but like that shit does happen. Michelle Murphy, who is the one that survived, she was the first and the most important witness called by the prosecutor throughout the trial. She claimed she tried to keep the knife from stabbing her by holding it in her hand. Which makes me cringe.
Oh, God, that had to hurt so bad.
Right?
Good for her. What a badass bitch.
Honestly, and she was being stabbed in the chest. Which
oh, my God.
Ugh. Awful. Awful. She remembers questioning Gargiulo about why he was doing it, and he eventually gave up and apologized. Gargiulo's DNA was recovered in a trail of blood located outside of Murphy's apartment. Murphy found confronting Gargiulo very difficult because he was so close to killing her.
Yeah.
She claimed she didn't get much sleep for months because she was afraid he'd be waiting for her when she woke up.
Oh, God. I can't even imagine, like, aside from the physical trauma, the psychological trauma that it takes,
Yeah. Just, like you think that you're safe in your own house.
Yeah. Ugh.
And something like that happens. It's just awful. She also stated that she never returned to that apartment and avoided the surrounding area since it reminded her of the pain she had experienced. Gargiulo was overheard arguing with his lawyers over taking the stand at the start of his trial because they didn't want him to. He said, "I'm going to death row wrongfully and unjustly."
Uh-huh.
He added that he didn't believe he was guilty. He had no remorse back then, and he doesn't have any today.
Huh.
People are baffled as to why Gargiulo apologized as he stormed out of Michelle Murphy's flat, despite the fact that he shows no feeling toward the atrocities that he committed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's weird. Someone who kills people for no cause certainly has something wrong with them, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know why they just plead insanity because obviously
everybody who kills someone is a little insane, right? That's why they have to have that, the criminal definition of insanity versus just insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Gargiulo is expected to be extradited to Illinois for the murder of Trisha Piccaccio in 1993, prosecutors in Los Angeles provided considerable evidence from this case to show he had a pattern. To achieve a harsher sentence at the end of the trial, they needed to prove that he was, in fact, a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
For almost 3 decades, Piccaccio's parents have been waiting for justice. Gargiulo couldn't be extradited to Illinois until after his California trial. But it probably feels really good to know that he's in jail and he can't harm another woman.
Yeah, but still 3 decades waiting. Holy crap.
I know, it's awful. It goes on to say that, they won't be able to rest in peace until he's found guilty of the murder of their daughter.
Yeah.
Quote from them, "Everywhere Mr. Gargiulo went, death and destruction followed him."
Wow.
Oh, that was the judge, actually.
Oh.
the judge remarked about this throughout the trial. Sorry. He also described the crimes as heinous and terrifying.
Yeah.
A neuropsychologist from the defense's side testified during the trial. Gargiulo was in special ed in primary school owing to behavioral difficulties, according to this neuropsychologist. She claimed that he was prone to power clashes with grown-ups. A psychologist diagnosed Gargiulo with DID after several conversations with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The diagnosis, on the other hand, did not sit well with him.
Wow.
Okay. During the Hollywood Ripper trial, Ashton Kutcher testified about the circumstances of the night he was supposed to pick up Ashley Ellerin for their date. The defense for Gargiulo, on the other hand, claimed that Kutcher's testimony helped to point to a new suspect.
What?
So stupid. Attorney Daniel Nardoni attempted to persuade the jury that the stabbing killings were the result of the actions of two other men. Because they were in a secret relationship, the defense wanted it to appear like Ellerin's murder was caused by the apartment manager.
What?
Isn't it bullshit?
Yeah.
The defense attempted to make it appear as if someone else killed Ellerin, and they did the same with Maria Bruno. They said, whoever did this, it was personal, Nardoni told the jury after showing the jurors a horrific crime scene photo of Bruno. He went on to say that they only discovered Gargiulo's DNA at the scene because they lived in the same apartment complex. The only time the defense didn't try to change the story was when Gargiulo was charged with attempted murder and there was a mountain of evidence against him. They also claimed that because of his DID, Gargiulo was in a blackout state when he went to Murphy's residence and had no idea what he was doing.
Who did they say was his other personality?
They didn't. It's just,
okay.
It's probably just like a more violent personality.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I find DID so fascinating. I follow a couple TikTokers with DID and it's just really interesting.
It is very fascinating.
Yeah.
It's sad how they got the disorder.
Yeah, for sure. For listeners out there, DID is dissociative identity disorder, which is basically the new term for multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, and it's brought on by lots of childhood trauma.
Yeah.
The jury heard heartbreaking testimonials from the victims' families throughout the sentencing portion of the trial. Ashley Ellerin's mother, according to one report, screamed and collapsed to the floor as her husband informed her of their daughter's death. As much as you try to have fun, be joyous, and be grateful for the good things, it will never, ever, ever be without that underlying despair, Trisha Piccacio's brother said. And remember, like, her brother and Michael Gargiulo were basically best friends growing up. Like, wow. And then he just went and did that to his sister.
That's insane.
And without their loved ones who didn't deserve to die, the families will never be the same because of this.
Yeah.
The jury determined that Gargiulo was sane at the time of the two murders and attempted murder after hearing numerous testimonials in his favor about his mental state. Gargiulo was now eligible for the death penalty as a result of this ruling.
Uh-huh.
Despite the fact that California hasn't executed anyone since the mid-2000s, he was nevertheless thrown on death row. The defense attempted to establish reasonable doubt, but when that failed, they moved to implying that Gargiulo was not cognitively cognizant of his acts. Despite this, he was convicted guilty of both murder and attempted murder. In the opening statements of the trial, the prosecution said, "What you'll hear is that Michael Gargiulo for almost 15 years was watching, always watching."
Ugh.
The district attorney added, "His hobby was to plot the perfect opportunity to attack women in and around their homes." Which is just terrifying to think
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
When he attacked his final 3 victims, he resided close by and waited for the right moment to strike.
Mm.
Murphy, on the other hand, while he had a direct view into her bedroom and took advantage of it, he stalked a lot of women, and there was a chance he's responsible for additional unsolved deaths.
Yeah.
Undercover cops spent 40 hours in a detention cell with Gargiulo after his arrest. The jury heard an audio tape from inside the jail where Gargiulo devised a scheme to fight the guard, steal a cop car, and then flee.
Wow.
Insane, right?
Yeah.
Gargiulo was eventually charged with attempted escape when police discovered a makeshift handcuff key tucked into his jeans.
Oh no.
The defense attempted, but obviously failed, to use this as a means of persuading Gargiulo to confess to his crimes. They also claimed there was no DNA evidence, which was untrue. A Southern California jury found Michael Gargiulo, called the Hollywood Ripper, guilty of the murders of Maria Bruno and Ashley Ellerin, as well as the attempted murder of Michelle Murphy, after only 3 months of deliberation.
Wow. 3 months, a long time to deliberate.
Long time. The jury noted that he laid in wait and planned his attacks in both the murders and the attempted murder. Michael Gargiulo had to wait another 2 years for his official sentence to be handed down. He was sentenced to death on July 16th, 2021, about 2 years after a jury found him guilty of his initial crimes.
Oh, that's recent.
He faced life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is awesome.
Yeah. So is he still sitting on death row?
Yes.
Oh.
The defense lost their case despite their efforts to postpone the punishment. And now he's anticipated to be extradited to his hometown of Illinois for the Picacho murder trial. If convicted, he could face a term of 25 years to life in prison in addition to his death sentence.
Cool.
So he'd never get it out.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that he's going to be executed anytime soon because he was sentenced to death in California.
Yeah.
But still, like, their courts are continuing under the idea that executions will restart at some point in the future, which is why people are still being sentenced to death. Before being sentenced to death, though, he needs to face the trial for the murder against Picacho in Illinois. So, an LA jury was forced to listen to the prosecutors argue for the 3 months that Gargiulo was a methodical killer who waited on his victims. He followed them around, broke into their homes late at night, and assaulted them with a knife when they were most vulnerable. Gargiulo was confident, assertive, and even arrogant that he would get away with his atrocities because he had gone unnoticed for so long after the murders of 3 women began in 1993. After the 2001 murder of Ashley Ellerin, who resided near Hollywood Boulevard, he was called the Hollywood Ripper. So that's where the name came from. I honestly just thought it was because he was living in LA, but nope. Well, no one will ever know why Gargiulo murdered those ladies because he refused to testify at his trial. Psychologists can offer some educated guesses. He loved the meticulous planning, but the stalking was insufficient. To achieve the same level of stimulation, he had to take the next step and kill them. He committed these atrocities, according to the defense, because of his abusive childhood and DID. It's more likely, however, that he simply relished the pleasure of murdering. He didn't show any emotion during the trial because he just didn't care.
Yeah. I think if anything, he was probably. Oh, sorry. There's a cat and I didn't realize it. I think if anything, he was probably more. I can never remember which one, sociopathic or psychopathic. I always confuse the two.
Yeah. I don't know either. The show 48 Hours aided in the investigation of the Hollywood Ripper case because 2 people from Gargiulo's past were discovered during their deep dig into his life. Do you guys remember who?
Oh, the kid, the 2 he killed before he was even 18.
the bouncers.
What?
Remember how he confessed to these 2 bouncers that he worked with that he killed?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So they found them, and they came forward after the original show aired about him, telling authorities that he had admitted to the murder of Boccaccio.
Huh.
Gargiulo allegedly informed the 2 about a homicide he committed outside of Chicago when he was younger. And then when he told them, they didn't believe him. But then after this all aired, they're like, shit. He was telling the fucking truth.
Yeah. Can you imagine sitting there watching that and being like, oh my God,
No.
that's insane.
But like, how awful, because like, if you had have just believed him, you possibly could have saved
a bunch of women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my story on Michael Gargiulo.
That's crazy. And I also didn't realize how recent it was, Jess.
Yeah. Started in 93, the year I was born, and then moved up from there.
Yeah, because you said he was just sentenced in 2021. That's insane.
Yeah.
Do you guys have the death penalty in Canada?
Not
No.
anymore.
No.
Nope. Last hanging, which was our form of capital punishment, was in 62. And then it wasn't abolished until like 78 or something, but it stopped.
Oh, okay. Interesting. In all of Canada, like it's not province to province.
Nope.
Yeah, all
Okay.
of Canada.
All of Canada.
That's cool.
What do you guys feel about the death penalty?
It's such a cop out. Like fucking make them rot in jail forever.
Yeah, I get that. I'm also not a fan because we're not 100% right all the time.
That's true too. Yeah.
You know, like I am sure we've killed innocent people. And until we have a foolproof way to prove, you know what I mean? I'd rather someone rot in jail for the rest of their life than kill an innocent man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or a woman.
Yeah. Exactly.
The last hanging in Canada was a double hanging at the Dawn Jail in Toronto, and one of the guys' heads popped off.
You told us that.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's fun.
Yeah, I remember that. That scarred me for a while.
Oh dear.
Well, thanks, Jess. I loved that. That was super interesting. I had no idea that Ashton Kutcher was involved. I didn't know anything about this. That was super interesting.
Cool. Well, and it's always nice when I can teach the resident true crimer something new.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. Apparently, people are theorizing that there is a new serial killer popping up in Northern California right now.
Ew.
Yeah. So I'll find out more information about that maybe. And I don't know if there's like enough right now to do a story, obviously, but like pop in and say something about it.
Yeah, you could do like a little mini story about it and then give updates along the way.
Yeah. I saw that on someone posted. I'm in a bunch of true crime groups and someone posted it in there.
Nice.
Yeah. So
okay, now tell us about the Radium girls, because I've never heard of them and I'm very interested.
It's really sad.
I'm sure you probably have heard of them at some point or
they
another.
all die.
Yeah.
The end. If you want more stories.
So I used quite a few different resources. The Atomic Heritage Foundation, Radium Girls, Living Dead Women by Arlene Balkansky.
Ooh, that title, Living Dead Women.
You know what this reminds me of? Do you guys remember that story of the girl whose like head was kept on by a scarf?
Oh yeah, that like
yes.
fable when you're little.
Green ribbon.
Yeah.
So creepy.
Also medium.com and grunge.com.
Ooh.
Nice.
All right. In 1898, Marie and Pierre Curie, two of the most prominent pioneers in researching radioactivity, discovered the element radium. Radium was particularly intriguing because it glowed in the dark, and as Marie noted, These gleamings seemed suspended in the darkness and stirred us with ever new emotion and enchantment.
This is a history story. I love it.
Soon enough, the radium craze was on. After it was observed that radium could treat cancer, many people mistakenly thought it could also be used to treat other diseases as well. Before long, radium was widely considered a miracle substance, sold in pharmacies for all kinds of ailments.
Oh,
It was
no.
also widely believed that radium could prevent aging, and companies sold radium toothpaste, radium cosmetics, and even radium water.
I mean,
no.
it does kind of prevent aging.
if it means completely stopping it all together.
Yeah.
Around this time, American inventor William J. Hammer went to Paris and obtained a sample of radium salt crystals from the Curies. Hammer discovered that by mixing the radium with glue and zinc sulfide, he could make glow-in-the-dark paint. His discovery would soon be used by the U.S. Radium Corporation to manufacture wristwatches with radium-painted dials. Advertisements for the product, which they called Undark, boasted of how it was all made possible by the magic of radium.
Of course.
Lovely.
U.S. Radium would also receive government contracts during World War I to produce watches and airplane instruments for American soldiers. I think if you invented a substance that glowed in the dark, I'd be kind of freaked out by that.
Yeah, I'd be like, why is this glowing?
Yeah. The corporation set up its factories in New Jersey and recruited dozens of young women to paint the watch dials. No safety precautions were taken, and the women were even encouraged to lick their brushes to keep the tip pointed and prevent the paint from drying.
I have heard this. Okay.
By the end of the day, the women themselves would be glowing from the radioactive paint on their clothing and skin.
Oh my goodness.
Harvard physiologist Cecile Drinker, who later investigated the factories, reported dust samples collected in the workroom from various locations and from chairs not used by the workers were all luminous in the dark room. Their hair, faces, hands, arms, necks, the dresses, the underclothes, even the corsets of the dial painters were luminous.
Holy crap.
One of the girls showed luminous spots on her legs and thighs. The back of another was luminous almost to the waist. The United States Radium Corporation workers had access to the radium for free. They used it to paint their teeth and nails to give them a pleasant glow before heading out to dances in the evenings.
Oh no.
That reminds me of being young and cracking glow sticks open.
Yeah.
Your clothes. Years passed, hundreds and thousands of dials were painted and shipped out. The war eventually came to an end, much to the relief of the general population. But all was not well for ex-workers of the United States Radium Corporation.
Dumb Americans.
We didn't know.
Dumb Americans of the past.
Yes.
And many Americans of the present, unfortunately. There were so many.
Listen here. We do not have the corner market. We do not have the corner. We do not have the market cornered. Dumb people.
That's
Oh
okay.
gosh.
Canada's got a lot of fucking dum-dums right now.
Oh god. Yeah. Don't even get me started.
There were so many radium painters in the country that it was common to recognize them on the streets, even on the darkest nights, because of the glow around them. Their hair sparkled almost like a halo.
And then in the time when they didn't know it was bad for you, how cool would that be,
Yeah. All along, the company assured the women that their work was perfectly safe. Within a few years, however, dozens of the women began showing signs of illness. The human body mistakes radium for calcium, so it filled their bones as calcium would, irritating the what the fuck is that word? Irradiating them. Irradiating them.
Radiating them.
Irradiating. Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. I'm glad it's not just me today.
Radiating them from within. The victims had their bones break, teeth fall out, and
Ugh.
spines collapse. And by 1927, more than 50 had died.
Oh, God.
Catherine Wolfe Donahue is not a well-known name, but in the late 1930s, newspapers featured her as she lay dying. Donahue, along with others, fought back. They brought lawsuits against the companies that employed them, and they even won, even though some did not live to receive their compensation.
Aw.
When 22-year-old Molly Maggia passed away after experiencing years of pain in her jaw and teeth, her condition was described as syphilis.
Oh.
The complaints of many other women were glossed over with the same explanation, despite symptoms that pointed towards something more sinister. It was 1925 before any of the workers came to understand the devastating effect the radium had on their bodies. Grace Fryer had once been a dial painter, and then her body started literally falling apart.
Ugh.
The bones of her spine crumbled and required a metal brace. Tumors and abscesses sprouted in her jaw, and she was in constant pain. The radium she had ingested while working had riddled her with cancer and weakened her bones, and it would soon end her life. Furious, Grace and 4 of her colleagues moved to sue the ex-employer. For 2 years, however, no lawyer would take them seriously despite their steadily worsening conditions. In 1928, the suit was finally filled. By this time, the demand for radium was declining as people woke up to the dangers of radiation. Sales of radium-infused products fell further when newspapers around the world printed details of Grace's story.
Good.
The United States Radium Corporation did everything it could to avoid responsibility, including using a range of delaying tactics to draw out the suit in hopes that Grace and her colleagues would die before it could be resolved.
Oh, my goodness.
That's awful.
At the same time, they quietly issued workers with protective equipment and advised against the practice of licking their brushes.
Yeah, I would hope so.
It was very definition of too little, too late.
Yeah.
Especially considering that the scientists and upper management of the corporation have been using protective gear around radium for years by that stage.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Wow.
not the frontline workers.
Of course
them.
not.
Never.
There were young women like Margaret Looney who grew so weak her fiance would pull her around in a wagon. Bones crumbled, limbs were amputated, spines were crushed under their own weight. The girls became anemic, bedridden, unable to eat. Wisconsin PRX reports that their bones were so weakened their internal structure resembled a honeycomb.
Oh.
The pain was constant, and in the late 1930s, enough were dead or dying that they got national attention. The New York Historical Society says the U.S. Radium first tried to blame the girls' illnesses on an outbreak of syphilis, like the one before. And it was years before the girls got their day in court. By the time many testified from the same beds they would eventually die in, and they became known as the Society of the Living Dead.
Oh my gosh.
Companies didn't just try to blame the terrible illnesses on other causes. They absolutely took an active role in trying to cover up the truth. Taking the case of Margaret Looney, she was the first to die from the radiation. And when NPR spoke to her niece, Darlene Halm, she said she could very vividly remember her family talking about her aunt's tendency to bring vials of the paint home with her. She was one of a family of 10, and would cover herself and her siblings with the radium paint. It took about 6 years for her to reach the end, and when she finally did collapse, she was at work when it happened. She was taken to a company hospital, and her family was told she had been quarantined for diphtheria. She died in the hospital at just 24 years old.
Holy crap.
A lot of these girls were young. Looney's family didn't believe the story, especially considering the company had refused to let them see her or her body. The Looney family insisted on an autopsy with their own doctor present. By the time that doctor got there, her autopsy was already done. Her death was brushed under the carpet, and it come out later that the doctors had been hired to find out what was wrong with the painters as early as 1925.
Oh my gosh.
Those doctors had assured Looney and her coworkers that she was perfectly healthy and skipped over the part about the radiation.
Wow.
Not all of the Radium girls died young, but those who did survive struggled with predictably awful health issues. May Keene, who died in 2014
Oh,
at the
wow.
admirable age of 107.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
She was one of the last, says NPR, and she was hired on as a dial painter in 1924. Fortunately for her, though, she didn't like it. When she was taught how to point the brush with her lips, she was revolted by the taste of the radium paint. Keene said she only worked there for a few days when she was called into the office and asked if she would like to quit. She said yes.
Good for her.
She was one of several hundred who did survive. It's impossible to tell how many Radium girls there were and how many lived, although at least one other, Mabel Williams, survived past her 100th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Almost like that tiny little bit. It's like real good for you.
Yeah.
Then you hit the overdose there. And over the course of her life, she suffered from chronic health problems, including, okay, maybe not. Maybe she suffered from chronic health problems, including ones that sound eerily similar to those suffered by the girls who died: bad teeth and migraines. She also survived 2 diagnoses of cancer. And while she says she can't definitely blame her health issues 100% on the radium, she did say she wished she had met the boss who asked her to quit just one more time. I often wish I had met him after to thank him, because I would have been like the rest of them.
Wow. Yeah.
Initial attempts to receive compensation from U.S. Radium were futile. Medical and legal costs were enormous, and U.S. Radium was well defined by a team of lawyers and held a prominent position as government contractor. Nevertheless, the story of the so-called Radium girls poisoning soon became a national sentence. When dial painter Grace Fryer, I mentioned earlier, filed a lawsuit along with 4 other women for damages of $250,000. In desperate need of the money, they would settle for $10,000 each and a $600 annual payment. A $600 annual payment, although none of them would survive more than 2 years after the settlement.
Oh.
While the development of Undark was a catastrophe for the women who worked on it, it also served to disclose the dangers of radiation exposure. This was true even prior to the creation of the Manhattan Project. During his time working at Berkeley, nuclear chemist Glenn Seaborg noted in his diary, "As I was making the rounds of the laboratory rooms this morning, I was suddenly struck by a disturbing vision of the workers in the radium dial painting industry." Seaborg insisted that his scientific team further research the properties of plutonium and take appropriate safety precautions, regulations, which would later extend to the Manhattan Project as well. Louis Hempelman, a doctor at Los Alamos, recalled how Manhattan Project safety regulations were also based on those of the radium dial factories, which were much improved by this time. Hempelman recalled all of the doctors of the Manhattan Project went up to the radium dial painting plant up in Boston to see how they handled their he cuts himself off and says plutonium and radium are quite similar. They give off the same radiation. They had a hood, or they worked under hoods or something like that. They would clean it up and test the contaminated area for actual contamination. So our procedures were patterned after that. As one official from the Atomic Energy Commission would later note, if it hadn't been for those dial painters, the Manhattan Project's management could have reasonably rejected the extreme precautions that were urged on it, and thousands of workers might well have been and might still be in great danger.
Wow.
Although U.S. Radium Factory in New Jersey was the most infamous case of radium doll painting, it was far from the only one. It is estimated that by the 1920s, as many as 4,000 workers were hired at companies across the United States and Canada to paint radium dolls.
Oh, no.
Radium watches would continue to be manufactured until 1968, although the safety regulations were drastically improved.
Crap.
Oh.
The case of the Radium Girls would also have an impact on establishing strict guidelines for worker safety and compensation beyond the Manhattan Project. In 1949, the United States Congress passed a law which gave workers the right to receive compensation for occupational illnesses. So the Radium Girls, they weren't just sick, they were literally radioactive. The body of Molly Maggio was exhumed in 1927 in the hope that her bones would give the remaining victims the evidence they needed to win their cases. Reportedly, when her coffin was lifted off the ground, her body glowed because of the radiation.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It wasn't entirely surprising considering her bones were found to be highly radioactive. Ottawa, Illinois was known as Death City throughout the 1930s. And in 1987, the documentary Radium City tried to show just how long-lasting the effects were in a very graphic way. When one man headed into the Catholic cemetery that is the final resting place of many of the Radium Girls, the Geiger counter he carried goes nuts. Their remains 6 feet down are still radioactive.
Wow.
With some of the girls' precautions were taken. Margaret Looney and Catherine Donahue were buried in lead-lined coffins. And yes, devotees of radium-based health products are just as radioactive. Industrialist and golfer Eben Byers was the poster child for a drink called Radithor.
Oh.
And drank several bottles of it a day.
Ooh.
Oh.
Holes formed in his skull, his jaw fell off, and his bones began to crumble.
Oh my
Holy
gosh.
crap.
He died in 1932 and was so radioactive that he too was buried in a lead-lined coffin.
Wow.
Though many of the Radium Girls suffered greatly and died before their time, their deaths were not in vain. Many of the victims volunteered for tests and medical examinations, allowing us to understand for the first time how radiation affects the human body. This persuaded scientists to take extraordinary precautions in later experiments with nuclear weapons, possibly saving thousands of lives. In addition to this enormous service to later generations, the case pushed forward by the Radium Girls was the first incident in which an employer was forced to take responsibility for the health and safety of its employees.
Oh, wow.
This was a revolutionary concept in 1928. Yeah. And that's the story of the Radium Girls.
Such an awful story, but
That was cool. Thank you for sharing some history.
You're welcome.
I love it.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Thanks, Rochelle.
Oh,
Do we have
don't look up the photos of them because it's gross.
I did already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have jokes.
Oh, okay. What are your jokes?
Why don't oysters donate to charity?
Why don't oysters donate to charity?
I don't know why.
Wait. I'm gonna think about it.
Okay.
Pearls. Shells. They're shellfish.
Yeah. Good job. Okay. What did the custodian say when he jumped out of the closet?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Supplies.
Supplies.
Okay, and I have one more. Okay. Which knight invented King Arthur's round table?
Which knight invented King Arthur's round table?
Circumference.
I love it. I love it.
I thought I'd be smart enough for all of them.
Well, if you want more of us three lovely ladies, you can find us at historiesandmysteries.ca. We are also on Facebook and Instagram at Histories and Mysteries Podcast on Instagram. Histories and Mysteries on Facebook.
And if you'd would like to rate and review us, we would really, really appreciate it. We've had some
Yeah.
new ones lately, which is just wonderful. And
Yeah.
again, thank you to all the new listeners and
Yes.
everybody that's rated on Spotify and Apple. We love
Can't
you.
thank you enough.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to bringing you 2 news stories next week.
Bye.
Bye.